This is a tough one. Anytime something ends, even if it's something that's not good, if it's something that has not been good for a while, human beings in general don't like change. Endings are always tough, and beginnings are always tough. All right, so the first question today is, I have no energy on a calorie deficit. So my man's trying to get lean here, obviously, and this is a common problem for a lot of people. When they're on a calorie deficit, they cut calories, they cut carbs, they're doing a lot of extra training, a lot of extra cardio, and they have zero energy. So on a deficit, I actually prefer a lower fat and higher carb diet. That way you'll have more carbs for energy. Most people feel better with more carbs versus lower carbs. It is individual, but in general, this is what I found to work over 30 years of doing this. So that is the approach I recommend. You'll just feel better. You'll get better pumps in the gym. Your sex drive won't tank as much. Your sleep will be better. Your strength will be better. And you'll tend to hold on to muscle more effectively that way. So, you know, in a deficit, it's hard to give a specific number, but anywhere between 10 to 12 times body weight is a good rough place to start for most people. So if you weigh 200 pounds, 2,000 calories is 10 times body weight. If you weigh 200 pounds, 12 times body weight is 2,400. Always start on the higher end so you have, you know, an ace up your sleeve. Once progress stops, you have, you know, you can make those cuts and reduce those calories and those carbs. So what I would do is set fat at about 0.25 times body weight. So again, if you weigh 200 pounds, times 2.5 is going to be 50 grams of fat. I'm sorry, 0.25 is going to be 50 grams of fat. Now, that's lower than what most people are exponentially lower than what most people are used to, because most people eat an inordinate amount of fat, which is what keeps them fat. Now, we live in this world of keto and high-fat diets, and that can be great for the right person at the right time. However, again, this is what I prefer. You're going to have more energy. You're going to feel better. You're going to look better. You're going to be fuller. You're going to have better pumps. So we're going to keep that fat way lower. Most people probably have way over 100 grams of fat per day without even knowing it. We're going to bring this hypothetical guy down to 50 grams of fat, and then we'll probably even bring him down. We adjust the figures as he comes down, right? So if he's 200 pounds and he's got to be 170 to look good, we're going to go 0.25 times 200. And then once he hits a plateau, once he stalls out, let's say it gets down to 185, now we do 185 times 0.25. Now we do 175 times 0.25, right? So that's going to decrease over time. Protein is always going to be set at 1 gram per pound of body weight. However, if you are someone, and you know this from experience, that you feel better on even more carbs, we can simply bring protein down to 0.82 times body weight. Now you're able to eat even more carbs. So we have 0.25 for fat, and anywhere between 0.82 and 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. The rest, again, is going to be carbs. So individual, again, but if you feel better on more carbs, keep the fat lower, keep the protein even lower. Now, the other thing is you want to take in a lot of electrolytes, mainly sodium. This is what happens a lot of times. People, they've cut their calories, they've cut their carbs, and they're not eating a lot, and then they get the old, antiquated, outdated notion that they have to reduce sodium as well. And when you reduce sodium, you have even less energy. You get worse pumps, fewer pumps in the gym. So we want to keep the sodium sky high. So add high-quality sea salt to all of your meals, and definitely drink LMNT. LMNT is my favorite electrolyte supplement. I put it in water all day long. I don't drink any water. You could actually overhydrate yourself, and you don't really rehydrate well when you're just drinking straight water. So what you want to do is put LMNT in there. You can go to drinklmnt.com/renegade, and you'll get a free sample pack with your order. drinklmnt.com/renegade. You cannot go wrong. Your performance will improve across the board with enough sodium and enough electrolytes. Now, the next thing you want to do if you are lacking energy is you want to reduce your training volume. So this is the opposite of what most people think. Most people think, okay, I'm going to go into a calorie deficit and I'm going to crank up the amount of training that I do. That is not always the correct approach. When it comes to adding more steps, yes, you should add more steps. If you're normally only doing, let's say, 7,500 steps a day, aim for 10,000. 10,000 is a great goal when you're trying to get lean, but we notice even significantly more fat loss, and believe it or not, improved sleep, which does enhance your fat loss as well when you get 12,000 or above per day in terms of steps. So 12,000, 15,000, 20,000 if you really want to optimize fat loss. But training volume in general, again, what people will do is normally, let's say they train throughout the year with 12 to 14 good hard work sets per workout, right? And they're doing 6 to 10 reps, and they're resting 2 to 3 minutes between sets. Great workout for hypertrophy, for strength, for reducing fatigue, for reducing inflammation, for not being sore. It's a great way to make progress. And then what they'll do mistakenly is say, okay, now I'm going to get ripped, so I cut calories, and I'm also going to up the reps. So instead of doing 6 to 10 on everything, now I'm going to do 12 or 15 to 20. Instead of resting 2 to 3 minutes between sets, now I am going to rest 90 seconds, 60 seconds, 30 seconds. So you turn it into this circuit-style workout where you're getting all huffy-puffy, you're getting out of breath. And you think, yes, this is much harder. I'm sweating much more. I'm breathing a lot harder. So I must be burning more calories and therefore getting leaner. But that is not the case. What's happening is your stress hormones are going way up. So your cortisol and adrenaline mainly are going way up. A lot of times that can cause muscle loss. So people end up, let's say, losing 10 pounds. But they're like, what happened? I look the exact same. I'm just a smaller version of me. My arms are smaller, my chest is smaller, my shoulders are smaller, but I really don't see any more definition. I don't have more of a vein in my bicep. I don't have more separation in my shoulders. My abs are no more visible. That's because all you did was skyrocket your stress hormones and you actually ended up losing muscle. You don't want that. You never want that. That's the biggest mistake you can make. So actually what you want to do, believe it or not, it's counterintuitive. It's the exact opposite of what most people do is you want to bring your training volume down. And the further into a deficit you get, the more you're going to reduce your training volume. You're going to keep your reps. So if you're doing, let's say throughout the year, before you start your cut, you're doing 12 to 16 total work sets. Now we might bring that down to just 12 or 10 or even 8 total work sets because you simply don't have the calories to recover from all this hard training, right? So what we want to do is lower the amount of work sets we're doing, reduce the overall number of reps in the workout. Meaning, let's say normally we're doing 6 to 10. Now we might be bringing that down even to 6 to 8. Some things that you might do 8 to 12 on, we might bring that down to 6 to 10 or 5 to 7, something like that, right? Because what happens when you're in a calorie deficit, especially if you opt for lower carbs, your ability to sustain and to push through those higher rep sets, and when you're low calorie, low carb, a set of 10 is essentially high reps for you, right? You start getting up to 12 or 15, really hard to push through those. And you're just going to end up burning muscle if you do too much of that high volume stuff. So keep the volume lower, extend the rest period. So maybe if you're resting 2 minutes, but you're at the end of a deficit and you're on really low calories, you might have to rest 3 minutes between sets, which again is counterintuitive because most people would say, well, let me bring that down to a minute. So you're going to do the opposite. And you're also only going to do, as you get closer, again, into a deficit, further into a deficit, only do, or most of the time, do low intensity, steady state cardio. That's how every physique athlete, bodybuilder throughout history has gotten really lean. Not by doing tons of high intensity cardio. I think you should do high intensity cardio once, maybe twice per week at the start of a diet phase. Towards the end, we'll bring it down to once. And towards the last couple of weeks, few weeks there, if you're really trying to peak, let's say for an event, a photo shoot, whatever it might be, we might have you doing 0 high intensity and it's all low intensity, but we really increase it to daily. It might be 7 days a week at 45 minutes with your heart rate about 120. Basically, you're incline walking, right? On a treadmill or, bike, something like that. So that's what I would recommend. These are a lot of common mistakes that people make, but it's easy to really make these changes and feel exponentially better when you're doing any kind of cut like that. So the next question is, how often should I be doing mobility work? Mobility is a range. It's the range of motion of a joint. whereas flexibility is the range of motion of a muscle. So ideally, we want both, right? And you should be doing it daily. So build it into your daily life. So if I were to say to you, hey, schedule a 30-minute workout at 6 a.m. or 6 p.m. every day to do mobility, you're probably less likely to do it because, let's face it, mobility is boring, right? I'm a meathead. I like to go to the gym and lift heavy weight. I hate doing cardio. I hate doing mobility. So if you tell me that I have to do that 30-minute mobility workout, I'm probably less likely to do it than if you said, hey, accumulate 30 minutes of mobility throughout the day. Build it into your day, meaning you're just standing around in between sitting at your desk. You get up, you do 10 or 15 full range squats. Throughout the day, you do some split squats. You might be somewhere else just out in the street and you just drop your heel off of a step to improve the mobility, flexibility of your Achilles, your ankles, your calves. You might throughout the day do some shoulder rotations, do some hip circles. That's what I would recommend, is to build mobility into your day so you accumulate, even hanging from a chin-up bar if you have one at home or near the office, you have a gym in the office, whatever, hanging from a chin-up bar and accumulating 5 to 10 minutes a day, slowly work up to that. But that could be great for shoulder mobility, for upper back, thoracic mobility. So I would say build it in. And then if you enjoy it enough that you want to do an extra condensed 15 to 20 minute focused or even 30-minute focused workout when you are watching TV at night, I think that's a great option as well. So you could also do it before training. I'll always do some before training. I will always do some in between my warm-up sets. And even throughout the workout, you can do it. So let's take an example. Let me give you 2 examples of, firstly, what should you be doing? So we work head to toe. For your neck, you just basically for every joint head to toe, you want to take it through a full range, right? So for neck, you just nod yes, up and down, no, side to side, and then you go lateral flexion, each side. Those would be really 3 things, and you can do very slow neck circles. So throughout the day, when you think about it, you add those in. Shoulders, again, the shoulder is a very mobile, dynamic joint, moves in all kinds of ranges. So just take it through those ranges throughout the day. And to get technical here, basically when you push your shoulder forward out of the socket, your shoulder blade, that's protraction. Then what you can do is you lift or shrug your shoulder up. That's shoulder scapular elevation. And then when you pull your shoulder blade back like you would do during a row, that is retraction. And then you drive your shoulder blade down into your back pocket. That's depression. And so you can do those 4 motions throughout the day. Just do slow circles where you bring it up, you bring it back, you drive it down, you reach it forward. And then you do slow motion circles like that, really working on those end ranges and masterful amounts of control. And then you reverse it, right? So you do it the opposite way you just did it. We also have internal and external rotation of the shoulders. So you would basically just put your arm out 90 degrees, and you externally rotate back like you were pitching, right, as far as you can go. And you hold that. You get to the end point there, and you hold that while you're working to get back. And then you internally rotate all the way as far as you can go. You get to that end range, and you hold that there. You don't let your chest collapse. You let your chest stay up high. And you just work those throughout the day as well when you remember. And I would hold about 5 seconds at the end range on those. So those are 2 great shoulder mobility drills you can do. You could look up something called the Egyptian. You could just do slow circles forward and backward. And a really beneficial way to do this is do it against a wall so that you have the wall there blocking you, so it really forces you to stay tight and get that big, massive range. Those are great things to do. Most people lack upper back. So your spine has your cervical spine, which is obviously your neck, your upper back, which is known as your thoracic spine, and then your lower back, which is your lumbar spine. Now the middle, if we had an X-ray, it's basically from my chest, bottom of my chest up to my neck here, and that gets really tight on a lot of people. So they lack extension, meaning I'm able to arch back over something, and they also lack rotation. And I'm talking to myself here because I could be much better in both of those. Now, if you're lacking in either or rotation, thoracic rotation or thoracic extension, that can manifest in shoulder problems and or low back problems, and I've been guilty of both of those. So a lot of times when you have shoulder problems, you'll start poking around and digging your shoulder. It's coming because you may lack that, what I said there, that thoracic extension and rotation. So you really want to work on that. That's a little harder to describe on a podcast, but you can go on YouTube and look up thoracic rotation drills. Basically, an upper body clam is one of them. Thoracic extension drills, things like that. Then you move down. Your elbow is basically just a hinge joint, so there's not a lot you can do for it. But the wrist, moves in all directions. So just throughout the day, you get that wrist moving. Hips, obviously, are very similar to the shoulders, where they have a wide range of motion, So you just basically do hip. You could look up hip cars. You do circles in all directions, very slow and controlled. Move that leg in every direction possible to open up those hips. And deep squatting, like I said, is great. Single leg squats, hip airplanes, another great one you could look up. Dr. Stuart McGill is a big fan of that one. I'm trying to think of a few others that I could just give you here off the top of my head. Anything that just takes that hip through its full range of motion, Cossack squats, lateral squats, lunging, all that kind of stuff is going to be great. And then, of course, your ankles, again, very dynamic. So what I would do for ankles is, and you could do it, you could do it while you're sitting. If you're sitting in a chair listening to this, you're sitting at work, cross your leg or put it up on something and simply just do slow circles with your ankle, taking as much range of motion, going very slow, get as much range of motion as you can, and then reverse that. Another good thing to do is just simply do the alphabet with your ankle. So A, B, C, and so forth. Do that throughout the day. And then when you're standing, let's say you're standing online at Whole Foods, something like that, simply just roll to the outside of your foot. And you notice that the side of your ankle there gets tight in a lot of people. So just roll to the outside of your foot. Hold that for a little bit. Roll to the outside. You can go inside as well, but basically roll to the outside as much as you can. And then even when you're standing, you could do slow circles, just keeping the kind of top of your shoe. It's better to do it barefoot, but if you're standing outside somewhere, you're lying at Whole Foods, like I said, the top or the toe of your shoes in contact with the ground, you're drawing a very slow circle, imagining your heel is kind of, like a spray paint can, right? And so you're spraying a very slow circle with your heel and then coming around to connect it on the other side. And again, what I was talking about in between warm-up sets. So let's say I get to the gym and my first exercise of the day is going to be a dumbbell press. So I'll do some stuff before. I'll do a cat camel, a bird dog, a sphinx position drill for shoulder mobility and whatnot. And then let's say I jump on, start warming up on the dumbbell presses. So I'm doing 30-pound dumbbells, which is obviously super light. In between those, now I'll start to do some of those shoulder drills that I talked about, some of the protraction, retraction, elevation, depression drills. I'll do some internal, external rotation, things like that. And then throughout the rest of the workout, right? So then let's say I finish the dumbbell press and I'm going to move on to a barbell press or a machine press or something like that. Again, I'll do some other stuff, and then I may just do some stuff that's not related. So in between exercises on that push day, always looking for how can we get more mobility stuff in. Let's start doing some ankle stuff. Let's start doing some neck stuff. I know for me, I've had 3 serious neck injuries, and my neck always tends to get tight, especially if I'm not always smart about my exercise selection or my intensity, which, sometimes the meathead in you takes over in the gym and you kind of, you just lose your mind a little bit and do stuff like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. I'm going to pay tomorrow. My neck's going to be a little bit tight. So what you can do there is, again, always look for opportunities. So if it's a leg day, your neck's not going to be really that involved. So in between sets, always doing some of that neck mobility, always doing some ankle mobility in between sets of upper body stuff, some hip mobility in between sets of upper body stuff. Now, none of this should take away from your next work set. It shouldn't tire you out, but you're not going to rest 0 seconds between ramp-up sets. So let's say, it's a pull day and you're doing a chest-supported row. You're going to do it, and you're not going to wait 1 second to do your next set. You're going to wait 30, 45 seconds between those warm-up sets. So why not add in some wrist mobility, some ankle mobility, things like that. So always just be looking for opportunities throughout the day that you can add in mobility. All right, next question is, what are your thoughts on doing push-ups and pull-ups every day? Is this good or bad? Now, I would say if you want to have healthy, functional, pain-free shoulders, it's probably not the best idea. If you're older and you have a lot of mileage on your joints, I don't love the idea. Overdoing pushing is it can cause a lot of tightness in your pecs, and it's internal rotations, right? So it's pulling my shoulders forward, which we don't want. We know that most of our lives is spent in internal rotation because we're sitting, we're driving. Most car seats are designed improperly. Most chairs and seats that you work in or sit in or plane seats are all designed improperly. And so you're always internally rotated a little bit. Your posture's not optimized. You're on your phone, posture's not optimized. You're on your computer, posture's not optimized. So we want to always undo that and pull our shoulders back and get into better posture. So I wouldn't want to do a lot of pushing that is going to set me up for more internal rotation. Now, the other thing is, in his question here, he's thinking pull-ups, because we hear oftentimes that you should do at least double the amount of pulling that you do pushing. Some people say it's a 2-to-1 ratio. Some people say it's a 4-to-1 ratio. But the reality is not all pulls are created equal for that. If you're doing a pull-up, lats are an internal rotator as well. So now what we're doing is we're causing even more internal rotation. If you want to combat the internal rotation of the push-ups, you'd actually want to do a row. So an inverted, if maybe he's obsessed with body weight stuff here, so an inverted row on rings is going to be better, because now we're training more the upper back, the rhomboids, the rear delts, the traps, and we're retracting the shoulder blades all the way. That would be a better approach, but I still don't love the idea of doing the push-ups and the pull-ups or the inverted rows. Definitely not the pull-ups. And also with the pull-ups, you will undoubtedly end up with elbow issues, which I don't think is a good idea. So the other thing is this: most adults are not strong enough to do proper push-ups, to do a set of 8 to 12 reps. When I show them, they can't even do it. Okay, so right there, now we're doing maximal effort work. So I don't think that's a good idea. The other thing is pull-ups, forget about it. Most adults cannot do a single proper pull-up. Now, and I don't even like pull-ups on a straight bar. I like neutral grip chin-ups, and ideally those handles would, freely rotate a little bit. But now, again, we're doing maximal effort work. We're going to strain the shoulders. We're going to strain the biceps. I don't think you're going to get huge from doing it. And if for no other reason that you're going to cause a lot of inflammation, a lot of internal rotation, shoulders are going to be banged up, you're not recovering. I just don't think it's the best idea. Now, if for whatever reason you decide that I really want to improve the number of chin-ups I can do, then it's a great idea for a short time. I would opt to try, I would stick with about 6 weeks at first, right? Max, maybe 30 days, maybe 4 weeks. And so you could do sub-maximal effort, neutral grip chin-ups, like I said, would be preferred, every day. There's a lot of ways to do this. You can do ladders. You can do, let's say you have a chin-up bar at home. Every time you pass it, do 1 rep. And then slowly accumulate more reps over time. And then never do a maximal set, right? Like never do more than 1 rep. Just accumulate 10, 20, 30, 50 reps throughout the day, slowly working up to that. Let's say the first day you start with 5, and do that for about 5 days, and you increase it to 6. I like very slow, gradual progressions on anything. If you listen to any of my stuff, followed me, you know that I tend to go even slower than most people would think is necessary. But again, I've been doing this for 30 years. I'm 49 years old. I've worked with so many people at so many different levels, and I've seen what happens when people rush it too fast. Better to go too slow, because rushing too fast, when you end up with those overuse injuries and the joints start aching and nagging and you got the tight tendons and ligaments and stuff pulling, by the time that comes up and you're feeling that, now we may need 6 to 8 weeks, sometimes 6 months to undo that. So I'd rather have people go slower. But again, if you want to improve, let's say you're getting tested on a chin-up or pull-up or a push-up even, doing those sub-maximal sets and accumulating a lot of volume throughout the day and throughout the week is a really good idea. You could do it 7 days, probably better to do 5 or 6 and have one of those days off. And then after about 4 to 6 weeks of accumulating a lot of reps, take 5 to 7 days completely off of doing the chin-up or push-up, and then test your max, and it will always have gone up by then, which is great. So it's a great way to improve the number that you can do. It's, some people can achieve decent hypertrophy, again, for 4 to 6 weeks if you are if that's something, you're doing super high frequency for short periods of 4 to 6 weeks, and we're just doing push-ups for high volume, some people can get a decent amount of growth out of that in their chest, their shoulders, their triceps. Same thing for upper back and biceps. As long as you cut it off before we start to, develop some of those overuse injuries and some of that tightness. I would just be hyper aware of how your shoulders are feeling. And if you're going to do that, you're going to do the push-ups and the rows, do more rows and push-ups, and also add in some external rotation work, maybe just with a band or a cable, just doing, let's say 2 to 3 sets of 8 to 12, along with the push-ups and the rows, just to keep the external rotators from getting banged up there. All right, next question. What is the best exercise for bigger triceps? I mean, it's really easy. This is old school. Parallel bar dips are going to be number 1. And if you're an old school enthusiast like me, look up Marvin Eder. Guy was a freak with the amount of weight he used to be able to dip. A lot of those old school guys called the dip the upper body squat. The dip was really the main upper body exercise in the early 1900s for a lot of those guys. It was a standing press and the dip. This was before benches were invented. So that's how you really measured your upper body strength, your pressing strength, was through the dip. So can't go wrong with dips unless it bothers your shoulder, and then maybe we'll have to address why that is, and close grip bench. So the best exercise to pack on muscle and strength is always going to be the one that allows you to recruit the most amount of muscle and use the most weight, right? So a push down is always going to be inferior to a dip. Any kind of extension is going to be inferior to a dip, because with dips you got triceps, you got shoulders, and you got chest. Now some people would argue that you should have more isolation. Nope, big compounds will always be the king. So then I would say those two next in order would be a JM press, which is basically a combination of a close grip bench press and an extension. And once you get it down, you get to do it. You get to learn how to do it right. Great tricep exercise. After that, you basically fill in the blanks there with some push downs, right? A basic row push down, one arm cross body, X push down, something like that. And you could do overhead rope tricep extensions as well. But the best are going to be your dips and your close grip, and then the JM press coming up next. Next one here is, what is your go-to breakfast meal? For the last year or so, it's been super simple. It's been 6 whole eggs cooked in butter. A lot of people might recognize that I got lean for the first time. Going back to the first question, and what we discussed is I got lean after years of trying low carb, high fat diets. I finally got lean by doing a lower fat diet. And that was really eye-opening for me. And then once I put all my guys on it, everyone that couldn't get lean finally got lean, going lower fat. Nowadays, I tend to feel better across the board with higher fat. But there's always a process that you go through to get there. And I do that with a lot of my guys as well, a lot of guys that I coach, where we take the exact same trajectory and then they end up eating just a lot of meat and fruit and eggs and they feel way better. But at first, if we're trying to get them optimized and get them lean, we'll do the lower fat. And so nowadays, I've kind of transitioned into the higher fat, like the 6 whole eggs, and nature's best vitamin is a whole egg. So 6 whole eggs every morning, butter. That is a new, grass-fed, obviously, or wild caught. Cage-free, free roaming eggs. Feel fantastic eating that, and a humongous bowl of berries. Usually it's berries. Maybe I'll have an orange. Maybe I'll have a banana. Whatever. Anyway, coffee with collagen. And if I'm going to train, I will add in some starch into that. So that would usually be a sweet potato, sourdough bread, or some rice and grinds, which we will link rice and grinds in the show notes. Something I have all the time. My favorite source of starchy carbs, super easy to digest, and love my man Sean and everybody at that company. So that's my breakfast. Next up is, I am skinny fat, around 15 to 16% body fat. Should I be bulking or cutting? Being skinny fat's a tough one, and I'm the king of that. I grew up initially being fat and then skinny fat throughout many years. That is one of the reasons I wrote the hard gainer column, because a lot of people think or claim to be a hard gainer when they're skinny and ripped. If you're skinny and ripped, you're not a hard gainer. Because it's just you don't eat enough. If you're skinny and fat, you are truly a hard gainer. And so that's a tough situation. And, you're kind of right on the cusp there at 15 to 16% body fat. And, if you lose too much, you're going to really look skinny. If you try to bulk up, you're going to get, you're just going to get fat. So what I would do is eat at a slight deficit, and then basically you're just training for muscle growth. So get down to about 12 to 13%, and then just start slowly adding 10 grams of carbs per day. So we could take the formula that I gave at the beginning to lean out, right? And then, maintain that. So that becomes your set point. You're able to stay lean there. Now, and this is what I do all the time with clients, is we'll add 10 grams of carbs per day for, depending on them, what they look like. I can kind of gauge it just by looking at their physique and kind of, getting to know them after working with them for a while. Add 10 grams per day every 4 days, every 6 days, every 7 days, whatever I determine it to be. And what will happen is they'll end up getting, an extra 10 grams, 20 grams, 30 grams, 70 grams, and their weight hasn't changed. So imagine how much fuller you'd be, how much better pumps you would have, how much better your sex drive is going to be, how much better your libido is going to be if you are eating an extra 70 grams of carbs a day without gaining weight. Some guys were able to add 100 plus grams of carbs a day without them gaining an ounce, which always blows their mind. But this is a proven system. It works all the time. So I would do something like that. And then what happens is when you reach the threshold where you do finally start to kind of smooth out a little bit, your definition blurs out, you can't see your abs anymore, that's when we're going to stop. We're just going to halt and say, okay, that was at 230 grams of carbs for you per day. We were staying just as lean. In fact, we're getting even leaner. Now we've hit that plateau and you're kind of smoothed out. Let's hold that for 2 to 4 weeks and see what happens. If you're just as smooth, okay, then maybe we'll have to, bring the carbs back down again for a little bit, lean out, and then go back up. So it's never just a linear process, right? But everyone's different. So what may happen there is we hold those carbs there, your body starts to adapt to it. Now all of a sudden you start to lean out again at that 230, which was kind of, you were just holding there. If that happens, great, we could start adding more carbs again. And a lot of times it's not linear over the course of 7 days either. What we may do is have high, low, and medium days, or just a cycle of 3 to 5 low days and a high day. Like it really depends on the individual, right? So many different ways to go about it. But all right, let's do one more question for the day here, guys. My man here says, I just suffered a breakup. I'm starting over. What steps do I take? Look, this is a tough one. Anytime something ends, even if it's something that's not good, if it's something that has not been good for a while, it's going to be sad. It's going to be hard. It's going to be emotional. You're going to feel lonely. You're going to struggle. Human beings in general don't like change. And beginnings are always tough. Endings are always tough, and new beginnings are always tough. It's like, even if it's something you really wanted to do, like let's say you've been putting off learning to play an instrument for years. It's like the challenge of the newness. Like, how do I schedule? We'll have to drive across town and meet with the instructor. Anything new is a challenge. That's just, part of being human. So you have to accept that. I think during a time like that, it's crucial to have your routines. It's crucial to have your daily habits. You've got to create a list of non-negotiables that you live by and that you don't break, you adhere to. You've got to start to really hold yourself to a higher standard. You've got to stay busy. You've got to stay focused on anything but the girl or the guy that broke your heart, or maybe they didn't break your heart. You both decided it was a mutual decision that you guys don't want to be together anymore, but you're still, there's still that void, and you're still like, oh, I miss this person, or how do I go on my own, right? So you've got to, hold yourself to those high standards, those daily non-negotiables. You've got to train. You've got to keep your diet in check and on point. Don't default to alcohol and drugs. Make sure you're getting enough sleep. Because if you don't do those things, right, if you miss your workouts, your mood and your physiology is going to change for the worse. If your diet is off and you're eating junk food, we have ample evidence that it negatively impacts your cognitive function, your mood, all these things. Same thing with your sleep. So you've got to do that. You've got to be around other people. Human beings are social creatures. We need our friends and our chosen family and our family during this time. So during a breakup, I'll do this, right? I know better, and I preach, don't do it. But sometimes I find myself defaulting to, I'm going through tough shit. I'll man up, handle it on my own, and then I'll go back to hanging out with everyone and talking to everyone once I'm better, because no one wants to see me in this kind of downtrodden, low-energy, negative state. And that's complete bullshit. That's a huge mistake. You don't want to do that. You don't want to make that mistake. You want to be always reaching out, getting around those people. It's fine to show vulnerability. It's fine to ask for help. You should do that. People will be there for you. You think maybe, oh, no one wants to be bothered with me. No one cares. They're too busy. They're too important. They have this other stuff. They want to be there for you. That is why they've chosen to be close friends with you. You are chosen family. They want to do that. And those who don't will show their true colors, and maybe you shouldn't even be friends with that person in the first place. Now, what happens when you're going through tough times, and I've gone through my share of tough times the last few years, and look, life has seasons, right? We all go through. It's summer, and it's a never-ending summer vacation, and we're winning almost linearly, and it's too good to be true. But you know when that's happening, that winter is around the corner. You're going to get hit with it. No one's immune to it. We have wins and we have losses, and we go through those seasons. And people are there. It's easy to be there for someone when they're winning all the time, but when someone's struggling and they're going through that winter season, and maybe they're starting to lose, or they're just going through a tough time, that's when you'll really know who your true friends are, because a lot of them won't be around. A lot of them won't check in on you, and that's okay. If you can count your true friends, your brothers, on one hand, that is a gift. That is unbelievable. That's a blessing. If you can count them on two hands, you're in this small minority of 1% of people. I'm fortunate enough to have a really big circle of great friends that I can count on. But I mean, look, during the last few years when I've gone through some tough times, I've seen who was there and who wasn't. And not that I'm keeping score and that I would expect anything, or, you can't have expectations for people, right? But you just kind of see, okay, and not even in a negative way, because I don't operate like that. More so in a positive way, like, wow, these people, these 5 people or 6 people or 7 people, whatever it was, were here for me more than I could have ever hoped or expected, and exponentially there for me more so than everybody else. And so I'll never forget that, right? And so you want to look for the positive and the good during times like this. And so think about who those people are for you, and, appreciate those people, and never forget what they did for you during this tough time, during this breakup or whatever it might be, your financial struggle, and make sure you reciprocate that in the future. But, again, just make sure you're leaning on your people. Don't default to, loneliness and isolation and drinking and bad habits. Get in the gym, do something physical 7 days a week, lift 4 or 5 days, do conditioning, do cardio, do mobility, commit to becoming the newest, best version of you for whoever you get in the next relationship with, and learn from the mistakes of this relationship. Sometimes it's really hard if you've been in a long relationship, it's hard to undo the things that you did wrong. Maybe you read a book and it's very eye-opening. You say, shit, maybe it's No More Mr. Nice Guy, or It's the Way of the Superior Man, and you say, shit, I did all of these things wrong. I can't undo them. I have a 10-year history with this person, and it's really challenging and really difficult for them to see me in a different light, and for me to be this new version of myself around this person, right? It's the same reason I moved to LA from New Jersey. Sometimes you have to relocate to reinvent yourself. Sometimes you have to be with someone new, or a new circle, or a new significant other, to be able to reinvent yourself and be that new person. That may be sad and unfortunate, but sometimes it's the reality. Sometimes we're just not strong enough to do it in that exact circumstance. So learn all the lessons, make notes. What did I do well? What did I do wrong? What do I need to do better? Work on that. Read, study, talk to people, get better for next time. I would also be learning something new outside of that. When you're going through tough times, it's really simple just to focus on those tough times, and again, default to just being, by yourself and not calling on people. But learn something new. Learn an instrument. Learn a martial art, box, whatever. Learn how to surf, go hiking, do other things. Learning is really good for your mental state, no matter if you're winning or losing, if it's summer or winter in your life. So learn things like that, and just stay busy. And, again, accept the fact that anyone in your life, in any relationship, whether it's a significant other, someone you are just dating casually, however that person treats you, or acts around you or responds to what you say or looks at you as a leader or a decision maker is 100% on you. You control that. Whether they are negative around you, gossip around you, or high energy, low energy, that is all on you. You control and you influence how people behave around you, how they treat you, how they act towards you. You get what you project. People accept what you project with confidence, and you will always find what you're looking for in life. Meaning, if you're a negative person who thinks that people are negative and people gossip and people can't be trusted, those are the only kinds of people that you will ever attract into your life. So you got to change that mindset. And when you do, those are the kinds of people that you will attract, the kind of people that are positive and high energy and trustworthy and look at you as the leader you are becoming. So that's all we got for today, guys. As always, I appreciate you. Thanks so much. I do this at least once a week on Instagram. I post up in my stories asking you guys for questions, and then I jump on here, get behind the mic, and provide you answers the best I can. So make sure you follow me on Instagram. Make sure you are following my stories. You do that. If you have not left an iTunes review yet, can I please ask you to do so? That would be greatly appreciated. And even if you haven't done that, if you could just hit the 5-star button, if you could share the show, it'd be great. Share it on Instagram and your stories. Tag me. Appreciate that as well. And that's it, guys. Thanks so much for listening. And I'll talk to you next time. Peace.